All right, welcome everybody to VTube Studio. In this short tutorial video, I'll go over the basic functionality of VTube Studio, how to set up models, how to load different backgrounds, basically just tell you what you can do with the app. This video is completely unscripted, so sorry if it's maybe a little bit hard to follow, but I just want to show off what the app can do. All right, let's get started. So what you're seeing right there is the Windows app and the iPhone app. I have the Windows app open here on the left, and then I have the smartphone app, in this case specifically the iPhone version, open here on the right, and it's being streamed inside of OBS using a screen mirroring software, so we can see both of them at the same time. So this is what you will see when you start the app on desktop and on your smartphone. The first thing you might want to do is check out the app on your smartphone and maybe just open the camera. And right here you will be able to see your face if everything worked correctly. It should look like that on Android as well. On Android, the tracking isn't quite as good as it is on iOS, but it is at least decent. So give that a try as well. So now that we have confirmed that the face tracking is working correctly, we can load a model. Now I have a separate video that shows you how to load your own models inside the app, but for now we'll just use one of the models that comes with VTube Studio. And just a quick reminder, these models belong to Live2D Inc. So if you want to use these models, be sure to respect their license under which they have released those models. One more word about the models. When you use like a huge model with a lot of deformers and a lot of huge textures, there might be problems. This model is basically as much as the iPhone X can handle. If it's any bigger, you will run into performance issues, so keep that in mind. We can just drag the model around, resize it, and it might show up a little bit laggy in the stream, but on my iPhone right here I can see it in a really nice and smooth 60 FPS. So it already follows the head movement quite nicely. I can even close my eyes. It picks up blinking. I could close one eye as well, or the other eye, and that works really nice. Smile also works nicely. So that's really cool. This model is already set up correctly, but if you import your own model, and we will take a look at that, there's an auto setup function that you can use, but we'll take a look at that. So right away, let's try streaming our face tracking data to the desktop app, so we have something a little bit more interesting. To do that, first we'll load a model on our desktop app. This shows you how to move and rotate and scale the model. So basically, to move the model, just drag it around with your mouse, then scroll to make the model bigger, and move it wherever you want. And you also can press Ctrl and scroll to rotate the model if you want to do that, but we'll leave her upright for now, and I think this is going to work nicely. Okay, so you can start a server right here. Click Start Server, and this will start a server at your desktop. Whoa, sorry, you can't see that. Let me just turn that off. You can click Start Server right here, and that will start a server on your PC with this port and this IP, or this IP version 6. You can use either of those in the smartphone app, and we'll look at that in a second. So we start a server right here, and this will say server online waiting for clients, and now you can connect your smartphone to that server. So the face tracking data is being streamed directly inside this app. So this will run in the background. If I close the configuration right here, it will still run in the background and wait for an iPhone or Android device to connect. So let's try that. I'll open my iPhone again, 1 second. There we go. Now in my iPhone, I can say right here on the general config, I can say connect to PC. And I have to, of course, put in the correct IP and the correct port, but that's it. Now it has connected to my PC, and as you can see, the model is still running on my smartphone, but it is also now running on my PC. And the tracking is really nice. It's working really well. I don't think there is any delay. Currently, I am on 5G Wi-Fi. If you use 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, there might be some lag. I have a help page to help you deal with network issues. So if you have any network issues, be sure to check the official documentation. I will link it in the description. So for the tracking, it will track your head rotation, it will track smile, it will track your brows, it will track your eyes being closed and opened. That works really well. And another thing that it actually tracks is the distance to the screen. This can all be set up individually for each model in any way you want. So you could connect any Live2D parameter to any face tracking parameter. Okay, oh yeah, another thing it tracks is actually quite funny. If you stick out your tongue, you can also connect that to a Live2D parameter. One thing that I forgot to mention is that after each time you restart the app, the first thing you might want to do is to calibrate the face tracking. And you do that by just looking to the camera at the normal distance and pressing the little camera preview window. And that will calibrate the camera for you. So let's do that right now. And there we go. Now we're ready and calibrated. Okay, let's look at the other menu items. So this one activates and deactivates the camera preview. Now the camera preview will show your face with a mask. You don't have to leave it active, you can just deactivate it whenever you want. What you can also do is you can change the settings right there. For example, you could say never show camera image, so it will just show a black image. So if you want to stream from your iPhone and you're scared that somebody might see your face, then you can just use that and make sure that that can't happen. And you could also say hide when face not found. What that means is the moment that the iPhone loses tracking of your face, the camera will be turned off. So for example, when I get too close to the screen, the tracking will be lost and the screen will turn black. And only when I get back in frame, it will turn the camera back on. So let's turn it off for now. Another thing that you have right here is the lock model movement button. So normally I can move the model around and I can move it around on the smartphone as well. But if I click this button, then that movement will be locked. And we'll say model movement locked. You can also say don't show this again. And now I can't move the model around anymore unless I click it again. So this is when you do something else on your PC that you don't move your model around if you don't want to. Then of course you have the locks. In case something breaks, you can always look inside the locks and see if you find anything strange there. Finally, there's this little close button down there, which removes the menu. You can do that on mobile as well. So when you're streaming, of course, you don't want to have the menu there. And just double click or double tap on smartphone to show the menu again. Okay, let's see. Next, let's take a look at the menu right here, the configuration. So we've had a look at this screen. You can select different camera configurations right here. Some smartphones have different camera configurations. For example, the iPhone X can do tracking at 30 and 60 FPS. We'll leave it at 60. I think most Android smartphones don't have different settings there. Another thing that you can do in the app is you can change the background. So for that we have this little background button. You can just click it and it will cycle through all the backgrounds that are included in the app. And I have another video that shows how to import your own models and your own backgrounds. It's really simple. Basically you just copy them in a folder and that's it. Okay, we can just click that and look for a nice background. All these backgrounds that are included with VTube Studio, you can just use them however you like. You can import your own backgrounds as JPEG, PNG, and also a couple of video formats, I believe MP4 and WebM. So that's an MP4 file and this one as well. You can just drag them in a folder and they will show up in VTube Studio when you cycle through the backgrounds like that. And of course the same is true for mobile. I can change to any background that I want right there. And I can import my own backgrounds as well. Finally, there is also a special background at the end, which is basically just a color chooser right here. That lets you choose any color that you want, and that is basically just put in the background of your character. So let's go with all green for no reason whatsoever. So like this, you could, for example, have a green screen if you want to stream your model in OBS, for example, and then just key out the green color. And I'll show how to do that at the end as well. Okay, so we've seen how to set up a VTube Studio model using the auto setup. The auto setup relies on your Live2D model using default Live2D parameter names. But of course, you can also use any kind of other parameter name in your model and can still connect it to the face tracking in VTube Studio. And I will now show you how, and we'll set up a model together. Alright, so let's set up a VTube Studio model together. I've prepared this empty Live2D model. I'll just load it for now. And it will ask me to do the auto setup. But since we want to set it up manually, I'll just say no auto setup for now. And let's zoom in a little bit. As you can see, the model isn't moving at all. That's because we have set up no tracking so far, and we haven't selected any idle animation. Okay, first thing we'll do is we'll start the server on our PC and then connect our iPhone to it, so we're streaming in the face tracking data. This will help us during the setup of the tracking. So let me move the iPhone out of the way. I'll just put it over here for now. And we will start the server. And then on my iPhone, I will connect to the server. Let me just type that in. And connect. And right away it connected. You can see it says 1 GB, 2 GB, 3 GB, 4 GB, 5 GB, 6 GB, 7 GB, 8 GB, 9 GB, 10 GB, 11 GB, 12 GB, 13 GB, 14 GB, 15 GB, 16 GB, 17 GB, 18 GB, 19 GB, 20 GB, 21 GB, 22 GB, 23 GB, 24 GB, 25 GB, 26 GB, 27 GB, 28 GB, 29 GB, 30 GB, 31 GB, 32 GB, 33 GB, 34 GB, 35 GB, 36 GB, 37 GB, 38 GB, 39 GB, 40 GB, 41 GB, 42 GB, 43 GB, 44 GB, 45 GB, 46 GB, 47 GB, 48 GB, 49 GB, 50 GB, 51 GB, 52 GB, 53 GB, 54 GB, 55 GB, 56 GB, 57 GB, 58 GB, 59 GB, 60 GB, 61 GB, 62 GB, 63 GB, 64 GB, 65 GB, 66 GB, 67 GB, 68 GB, 69 GB, 70 GB, 71 GB, 72 GB, 73 GB, 74 right here, server online connected, and this is the IP of our iPhone, updates per second 60. So it's sending in the face tracking data, but the model isn't moving. Well, of course it isn't moving because we haven't set up any face tracking parameters yet. So let's do that right now. Let's take a look at the model setup. So first thing we can do is we can give the model a name. By default, it's just the name of the live 2D model, but we could call it anything. And that's just what's going to show up in the model loading bar. And we can also choose an icon. The icon is taken from the same folder as the live 2D model. So just put an image in there and then select it from that list. So I just have one icon in there. I'll just click that and say select. Next, we can select an idle animation, and this will just again show all the animations that I've put in the same folder as the live 2D model. So we could choose one of the idle animations here, but I won't choose an idle animation for now. We will do that when we're done setting up the tracking. Okay, let's get started with the manual setup. So right here, if you want to run auto setup, you can just use those two buttons. But as I've said, we want to set it up manually, so we won't do that for now. Instead, we will click this plus, which creates a new VTube Studio parameter. And what that parameter does basically is it connects an input, which is a face tracking parameter, to an output, which is a live 2D parameter. So that's a normal workflow as well. You select an input parameter first, and then you select the output parameter. So let's see what kind of input parameters we have. This is all the face tracking parameters that we can use. So we have face position X, Y, and Z. X is this position, Y is this position, and Z is the distance to the screen, to your iPhone or your Android device. You can use those as input parameters. Then of course face angle X, Y, and Z. Face angle X is this, face angle Y is this, face angle Z is this. And then you have the obvious ones, so for example mouth smile, which is how much you're smiling, mouth open, which is how far your mouth is opened. You have brows, which is how high your brows are. You have tongue out, so it can even track your tongue, but this one is iOS only, so you can't have that on Android. Those are all iOS only right here. So for example, eye open left and eye open right. And then you have eye left X, eye left Y, eye right X, and eye right Y. So you can even track where you're looking, but this is only for iPhone. Okay, so let's for now select face angle X, and then we'll select an output parameter, and these output parameters are basically all the live 2D parameters that we have in this model, which for this model is a whole lot because it's a huge model. But let's go for now with param angle X, which is just the face rotation of the model. Select OK, and as you can see, it's already working perfectly. So you have the input right here. You can see the red dot and the number next to it, which shows the input value. And it's roughly between 30 and minus 30. And this parameter range of 30 and minus 30 is mapped to an output range between minus 30 and 30. Of course, I could change that however I want. So as you can see, it looks okay. But for example, I could say right here, 15 and minus 15. And now, if I rotate my head, the head rotation of the model is going to be smaller. I could even set it to 5 and -5. So now the rotation of the head of the model is very, very slight. Or I could, for example, set the top to -30 and the bottom to 30. So now she will rotate her head in the opposite direction of the direction that I'm rotating my head in. So using this system, you can set up any kind of parameter mapping that you want. Just keep in mind that your Live2D parameter has a maximum value and a minimum value, which will show up right here and right here. But other than that, you can do any mapping that you want. But for now, let's leave it at 30 and -30. Okay, another thing that you can do is you can set smoothing right here. I think this is self-explanatory. If you turn off smoothing, your model will react very fast, but the movement might look a little bit jerky. And if you turn it up all the way, the movement of the model will be very smooth, very nice, but it will be delayed. You can also see the dots right here. This is the input value and this is the output value. So you can see the output value always kind of lagging behind the input value. And that's of course what smoothing does. So just find the right smoothing value for every VTube Studio parameter that you create. I think maybe we'll just leave it at 10 for this. The tracking generated by the iPhone specifically is very smooth already, so you don't usually need a lot of smoothing. Another thing that you can do here is you can select clamp. This will make sure that the input never goes above the value that you put here or below the value that you put here. So as you can see, I'm rotating my head and it will stay at 30. And it will also not go below -30. And I can do the same for the output. So if I click this, I can make sure that the output never leaves the range that I selected here. But we'll leave it off for now. Finally, you can give this a name. So we'll call it head rotation left, right. And that's it. You can set up any kind of tracking that you want like this. So I could go on and, for example, say head rotation up, down, select an input, face angle Y, select an output, param angle Y, and that should take care of the head rotation up, down. And then we'll do another one for head lean rotation, and as input we'll choose face angle Z. As output we'll choose param angle Z, and as you can see, you can only choose any Live2D parameter as output once, which I think should make sense to you. And face angle C has a default input range of 90 and -90, but that's a little bit too big for us here. So I'll say we'll do 30 or 40 and -40. And I think that looks all right. So yeah, this is our head tracking. And we can do that for any other parameter as well. So for example, let's do one more. Let's do mouth open. And mouth open is usually between 0 and 1. So as you can see, if I open my mouth, it will go to 1 or very close to 1. And if I close it, it will go very close to 0. Then I'll select an output, param mouth open. I should have that somewhere in my model right there. And yeah, already that's looking okay. Maybe it's a little bit much smoothing. maybe, okay, I want her to open the mouth more, so I'll say upper range is 2. And yeah, I think that looks all right. Then we'll add mouth smile maybe. And as output, we'll go with param mouth form. Okay. Let's see what we have. Yeah, that's working well. Okay. Okay, I think we've seen enough of that. I think you understand how the parameter mapping works. Normally, what you want to do when you create a new model is you want to run the auto setup, then see how it looks, and then change the parts that you don't like. So let's do that right now. Since we're connected to an iPhone, we run the auto setup for iPhone. And this will create 19 VTube Studio parameters, and let's see what that looks like. So maybe the lean rotation is a little bit much. I mean, yeah, you could leave it like that, but probably it's a little bit much. The brows move a little bit much, but other than that, I think it looks all right. Okay, so let's fix that. Let's go to the brows. So I think brow height left will say the minimum is minus 0.3, and for brow height right we'll also do 0.3, minus 0.3. Yeah, that looks much better. And then we'll go to body rotation Z, and since this is a little bit much, we'll say input 30 and minus 30, output let's do 5 and minus 5. And then for head rotation C, we'll also do maybe 15 and minus 15. Yeah, I think that looks better. Yeah, let's do one more thing. Let's set up the tongue tracking. So as input, we'll use tongue out, and as output, we'll use param I xd visible. So now if I stick out my tongue, it will show this other pair of eyes, but of course we'll have to turn off the normal eyes as well. So again, I'll say tongue out as input, and as output we choose param I normal visible, which is just a parameter that I created in that model, and we'll say when tongue out is 0, this should be 1, and when tongue out is 1, this should be 0. So now if I stick out my tongue, okay, yeah, that looks good. Another option that you have here in the model setup is the Add Blinking button. What that does is when you click it, the parameter will randomly be set to 0. So you can use that to create a blinking animation. As you can see, I'm not blinking right now, but this eye is randomly set to 0. You can also see here in the output parameter how it's randomly set to 0. You can of course use that on any parameter, but usually you will use this to kind of simulate blinking. You don't really need it on iOS because it can pick up on blinking quite fine, as you can see. But you will need it on Android because it can't really deal with blinking at all. And finally, we want to set an idle animation for our model. So we'll just choose this animation right here. It's just a simple animation that I created for this character with a simple breathing background animation. And there you go. The idle animation just animates every parameter that isn't being controlled by the face tracking. One more thing that I want to show you is this option right here. So model when tracking lost. You can either say stay at pose or go back to default. If I say go back to default, the moment that the face tracking is lost, the model will go back to the default position. And once the tracking is regained, the model will go back to the position set by the face tracking. So once more, if I go out of frame, it will go back to the default position. You can, instead of doing that, select stay at pose. So now when I go out of frame, the model will stay exactly there until I go back in frame, and then it will resume the normal face tracking. Let's say you want to record a reaction video or record some sick gameplay with your virtual YouTuber character. You can do that quite easily with VTube Studio. All you need to do is basically put a green screen in the background and then just record it with OBS, and we'll do that right now. So to get a green screen, just select the last background where you have this color picker. Choose any color that works for you. For example, I'll keep it at green right here. And then in OBS, make sure that only that window gets recorded. You do that by using game capture. It's important, don't use window capture. That doesn't really work well. If you want to record at high frame rates, you need to use game capture right here. I'll just call it VTS and then say capture a specific window, choose VTube Studio as the window, and there you go. Now you have your window being captured right here, and you could even minimize the actual VTube Studio window and it would still record properly. If you have multiple screens, then probably the best idea is to just put it on your other screen so it doesn't bother you anymore. But we'll keep it here for now. Now what you want to do is you want to get rid of the green color. To do that, you need to add a filter right here, and then say chroma key, and then just play with those parameters until it looks the way you want. I'll make it a little bit bigger so it's better to see, and I think it already looks, yeah, I think this already looks good. So we'll just keep it like that. And now you have your character all ready to be used in a stream. I'll just put her like this. And now I will connect the face tracking in the background. I'll start the server right here, connect my iPhone to it, and get rid of that. Where are we? Lock the model, get rid of that, and we are ready. And that's it. Now I'm connected, and as you can see, the character is rendered directly on my desktop right now. I could put anything in the background, like I could put, you know, some kind of gameplay in the background. I could put a YouTube video in the background, anything. I don't really know how to use OBS well, so you probably know that better than I do. So just experiment with it and see what you can do. Is that working? Oh, that looks good. Okay. I was a bit worried because my PC can barely run this game without anything running in the background. So that seems to work all right. I mean, considering there's VTube Studio running in the background and also OBS is capturing the game. Yeah, that looks good, I think. Yeah.
Dr. Hayden is just across the complex. This industrial campus was once the headquarters of the Resistance.
Good news for the faithful. The Deceiver